Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, welcome once again for the discussion on the series of topics under Gita Wisdom that we started last week. And yesterday or last weekend, we discussed about the first topic, does God exist? And yesterday, we started our discussion on the second topic, are Vedas mythology? However, before we began our discussion, to talk about the specific topic, yesterday we began our discussion with talking about something more fundamental, something more important. Of course, the Vedas mention about it, but before we get into what Vedas say or speak about, is it a science or not? So we began to discuss about what is what every living entity in this world is looking forward to. So yesterday, as you said, there's almost around 7 billion population, and everyone is looking for happiness. In other words, everyone is searching for happiness. And that's not only true for humans, that's true for animals also. So when we talk about happiness, the thing is, it's always search is ongoing, because nobody can say or claim that I've found happiness. Even if you have found happiness, for how long? It's not forever. So that's the first thing about happiness. The second thing is, as we are looking for happiness, similarly, all of the living entities are also looking for happiness. And that's the time we begin to discuss about humans and animals alike. All are searching for happiness. So what are the commonalities between humans and animals? And we discussed 4 commonalities. Seed, S stands for sleeping, E stands for eating, the next E stands for enjoying, and D stands for defense. These are the basic needs of living entity, and everyone is absorbed into fulfilling these. So does humans and the animals. So if that's the case, and we are same to animals in these 4 basic requirements, then what is unique? Are we just an animal, or there is something unique with us? Is there any difference? We said yes. Actually, the scriptures bring out this very important point, that there is something very unique to us. Actually, humans are designed to practice and live by ABCD. Not A for apple, B for boy, C for cat, not like that. ABCD is an acronym where A stands for ability to inquire. Every human being has been given a higher intelligence for a purpose to inquire about, to inquire why is he suffering, why do bad things happen to good people, does God exist, and so forth. This is not a prerogative of animals. Animals cannot inquire like this. B stands for bliss. In human life, the humans are given a privilege to access higher levels of happiness. There are 4 levels of happiness. I'll just speak about it after this slide. And C is choice. Humans are given the opportunity to choose, unlike animals. Just like we were saying yesterday, if you go to a hotel or a restaurant, a waiter will come and ask you, what would you have for starter, main course, and for the sweet or a dessert? Different people will have different options to choose from. So humans are given choices, not animals. Animals function on instinct. And finally, D stands for determination. Determination to inquire, determination to seek out higher degrees of pleasure, and determination to make right choices. And that is the prerogative of humans. So what are the 4 categories of bliss, where B stands for? There are 4 levels of happiness. The least, or the very initial basis of happiness, is bodily pleasures. We discussed yesterday how, just to derive all the happiness on the bodily level, it's not possible. Why? Because the senses grow old. When we grow old, the senses become weak. And moreover, the resources are not available and unlimited. After a while, the resources, because of limited resources, there's a lot of competition. So we cannot enjoy fully at the body level. Higher than body level is emotional. Emotional happiness or bliss that comes from relationship. And higher than that is intellectual. One of the examples we gave is of Abdul Kalam. And the highest, higher than that, higher than BEI, the S, which is unlimited, which is always growing, is spiritual bliss. And that spiritual bliss, we can access that once we begin to try to establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And you don't have to even awaken that relationship fully. Even when you start the process, we begin to access spiritual bliss. And the beauty of spiritual bliss is, as we keep on moving in our spiritual journey, it keeps on increasing, and it's unending process. And that is the purpose of Vedas. That's the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, to give us knowledge and to give us access about the spiritual bliss. And that is the purpose of human form of life, because that is not possible and accessible in other living forms or in other living entities. So somebody may say, but sir, but Prabhu, science and technology is very promising. They have made great advancement and they're promising to make our life more comfortable and more pleasant. There's so much comfort and happiness in the world around. There's so many ways of enjoying life. You have pubs, you have bars, you have movie theaters, you have songs, you have games, Xbox and whatnot. Yes, the technology and the science have made advancement, but they have only improved, or they have only provided better facilities fulfilling the basic needs that even animals have. And those are sleeping, eating, enjoying, and defending. The science and technology have not done anything to help us or improve our sense of happiness or belongingness in BEIS. At B, body level, they have, but nothing for emotional level, nothing for intellectual, and of course, no access to spiritual subject matter. So even if somebody says, body pleasure is what I want. Now, I was asking this question at another forum. Are we really happy today? We have big houses, we have comfortable car, everything is there. But are we or truly happy? Or the previous generation used to be more happy? And in that forum, most of the people said actually previous generation was far happier than today. Why? Look at the results. Humans are dissatisfied. They're full of anxiety. This is the modern day statistics. I have not included the statistics in this particular slide, but you can go and look at the WHO, World Health Organization website. They'll give you a whole statistics about increased number of rate of crimes, suicides, and so forth, mental diseases, stress-related disorders, and whatnot. If science and technology is able to help us, why are we actually suffering more? And the reason is because we are getting more and more disconnected from our spiritual identity and spiritual relationship. That's the reason scriptures tells us, primarily Bhagavad Gita, which is said to be Gita Upanishad, which means the essence of Vedas, tells us that human beings have higher intelligence. And the purpose of this higher intelligence is to find out the cause of our sufferings, to inquire about the purpose of life, to harmonize our life with God and nature, and to attain eternal happiness. So, are we really suffering? Of course, all of us have some other issues. And right now, the COVID issue is a prominent. And all of us at different time, place, circumstances have different issues. But scriptures, Vedas, and let's say Bhagavad Gita, brings out 7 real life problems for everyone. And what are real problems? Real problems are defined as which are common to all, nobody wants it, and nobody can avoid it. And like that, there are 7 problems which are common across all living entities, across all the races, across all the gender and colors and whatnot. And they are birth, death, old age, and disease. These are the first 4, and the next 3 are Adhibhautika, Adhi-atmika, Adhi-daivika Kalesha. We are doing a recap. We have discussed in detail yesterday. Now, after recognizing these 7 diseases or 7 miseries that all of us are faced with, again, somebody may say, but the medical science have made a lot of advancement. They can help us. But they've created AC, central AC, they've got vehicles, cars, and whatnot, better mode of communication. They can probably help us in the future. Yes, agreed. They have made great advance in medical science and have latest technology. But science and technology cannot stop old age. They cannot eradicate diseases entirely. Go and look at the statistics of the last 10 years. How many new kinds of diseases have come? In fact, all of you would be aware now the flu or the fever, while we were growing up, there used to be only one kind of fever. And it was a standard medicine that I believe I took it until the time I finished my college education. Now, just because you get a fever, you have to go through a blood test, whatnot, and there are varieties of fever. Are diseases reducing or diseases are increasing? So that's the whole point. The science cannot eradicate disease entirely and hardly has any understanding of life and death. That's the reason Bhagavad Gita, and of course, for this science and technology, for these problems, they only offer us patch of solution. Like yesterday we were discussing, if somebody grows old, somebody gets white hair, so they give a solution of use a hair dye. If you have wrinkles on your skin, then they have whatever they call as, you know, uh, whatever to do with the skin treatment and so forth. So they only give a patch of solution. It's Bhagavad Gita that not only introduces us to these real problems of life, but in fact, it also tells us the solutions that we can, if we understand, if we follow it, then we can overcome these 7 real life problems. And what is the secret, or what is the key solution? Is to revive our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the reason Krishna, in the end of Bhagavad Gita, says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja, Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo, Moshyami Masuchaha. People say they don't believe in God. People say they don't believe in Bhagavad Gita. However, in fact, everyone follows Bhagavad Gita. You may ask, what's the evidence? I'll give you an evidence. You know, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. What does Krishna says in the first line of Bhagavad Gita, or in this particular verse of Bhagavad Gita? Give up all religious faith, all traditions. Those who do not believe in religion are the one who have already given up religious faith and traditions. Even they are following what Krishna says, not completely, but partly. Nonetheless, the idea of Bhagavad Gita is the true happiness lies in reviving our love with Supreme Lord. And that is what spiritual life is all about. And yesterday, to explain this point, I had given an example of a lost son of a rich man who has now become a beggar. I hope all of you would remember the example. And all of you had agreed, if you find that boy, the best way would be to take this boy, put him in your car, and drive him to the house of the rich person. Because once the son meets with the father will take care of the son for everything, every need. He and no one else have to worry about him. And that is the goal of Bhagavad Gita, to help us realize who we are, who is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and help us awaken our relationship. So that's about the subject matter, and this is how we discussed yesterday, that how scriptures talks about reality of life. It is not mythology. So when you talk about scriptures, now we'll begin our session for today. This was just a recap of what we did until now. When we talk about scriptures, I believe some of you might have heard about this. Let me see if your chat is enabled, because we'll start interactions now. Yes. So how many of you have been challenged that, scriptures means blind faith? Has anyone challenged you like this? Or maybe you believe the scripture means blind faith. You cannot prove anything in scriptures. So let's get a little interactive now. You can type in your answers, yes or no, on the chat box, so just to see, all of you are able to get me. So, okay, some of you say yes. People say it's a blind faith. There is nothing can be proven. So we're going to give you 3 aspects of it to help you understand how scripture is actually not a blind faith. Scripture is a science. It's a true science, and that is what called as scriptures. So if you have a pen and paper, if you want, you can note down these 3 points. It will help you to build your own faith, and to, if in case somebody challenges you with this kind of an idea, you have something to talk to them. First thing, science versus spirituality. People say science is based on facts and spirituality is based on blind faith. This is what people generally talk about. I believe all of you would agree with me on that. So let's take a look at science and spirituality. Now, science means facts, generally what people say. But look at what science, or where the modern science has come from. The modern science is based on one's senses and mind, which means the modern day science have manifested based on pratyaksha and anuman praman. This is what the science is all about. If any one of you have done research, that's how research is happening. That's how research is. That's about science. So people say that's fact. But think about the theories that we discussed in our previous session, the second session of Does God Exist? When we talked about Charles Darwin theory, the chance theory by Richard Dawkins, and the Big Bang theory. Are they really science? Science means evidence and facts. There are no facts. They're hypotheses and speculations, yet they're taught to us as a science. So what exactly is science? So science, what is defined as rely on our senses and mind. And when it comes to spirituality, they tell us this is blind faith, because spirituality, nothing can be proven. Only science, whatever science we have, can be proven observable. But still, there are so many theories which are not observable. They're just a theory. So, what is spirituality? Spirituality, or the Vedic science, relies on revealed scriptures, which are considered to be word of God. In other words, all these Vedic scriptures, we'll be talking ahead about it, how did Vedic scriptures came into existence. These Vedic scriptures are not written by a man. These Vedic scriptures are a word of God. If you may remember the example that I had given of a washing machine, if you buy a washing machine and if you want to know how to use washing machine, the manufacturer of the washing machine would have given you a manual, and you open a manual to read and understand how to use washing machine. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, the creator, Om Purnam Adha Purnam, of this whole universe, also gives a manual to all of us how to live in this world, how to operate it, and what is the goal of our life. So that is what called as Vedic scriptures, which is a manual for life to live in this world, which is given by the creator of this world, that is the Supreme Lord. And that's about Vedic science. So science versus spirituality, it is considered there's always a tug of war. Science is factual, spirituality is some blind faith and traditions. However, there are two commonalities in science and spirituality which actually makes them at the same level. Let's take a look. What are the commonalities? Both science and spirituality begins with a faith, and faith is an essential prerequisite for both science and spirituality. There is something called as axiomatic truth. What is axiomatic truth? Axiomatic truth means which is self-evident and cannot be proven. The science, the foundation of science is also based on this axiomatic truth. To give you an example, the point is considered to be a non-dimensional entity. However, when you join those points and you draw those points multiple times, and when you join those points, it becomes a line. The same points, when joined together, gives you a dimensional entity. However, the point is non-dimensional. How from a non-dimensional, a dimension can come? This is what the axiomatic fact or axiomatic truth is. You might also know about imaginary number. Imaginary number, what is imaginary? It does not exist, which means this imaginary number you cannot plot on the line. And however, this imaginary number is a foundation of mathematics. Similarly, there is a third law of thermodynamics, which is based on the perfect crystal at, I believe, absolute zero. Neither absolute zero exists experimentally, and there is no perfect crystal existing. So these are axiomatic truths, even in science, based on which the whole science or the foundation of science is built. Similarly, in spirituality, there are some axiomatic truths on which the rest of the pillars of spirituality are standing or are built. Like God exists. We are not the body but spiritual soul. We are not the body but a spirit soul. The spiritual world exists. Like that, there are certain axiomatic truths based on what the whole spirituality exists. So, if we can understand, or if we can accept, there are some examples of what I discussed, if we can accept axioms in science, then why can't we accept Vedic axioms? And here is a very interesting thing. We are not asking you to accept blindly. At least in our interactions, I have generally encouraged whatever question we have, we should always ask. Now, with the spiritual axioms or axiomatic truths, the beauty of that is once a person begins to practice spiritual culture over a period of time, whatever axiomatic truth, be it spirit, be it supreme God, whatever it is, the person can realize all those axiomatic truths. Unlike in science, it is not that you become a PhD in mathematics, then you have understood the existence of imaginary number. No, it is by default assumed, it is axiomatic truth, and you have to build rest of the mathematics on it. And that is the major difference between science and spirituality. In other words, spirituality or the Vedic scriptures are provable, unlike science. Second commonality, the first was faith. What is the second commonality? The second commonality is about pattern. What does pattern mean? Just like science, you remember going to schools, attending a class where some theories taught to you. When some theories taught to you, then you're taken into an experimental lab where you perform an experiment. And after that, if your experiment holds true with what you had studied in your class, then you draw a conclusion and you reach to a conclusion. Similarly, in spiritual science, there is a theory. You study about, let's say you study Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita teaches you about certain practices. And then you are taught about those practices, which is an experiment. In spirituality, the experiment or the lab is individual, where we perform an experiment by taking to the spiritual culture. And the theory says when you take to spiritual culture, you become happy, you become healthy, you become more loving, more accommodative, more broad-minded, and so forth. If by the practice of spiritual culture, the person experiences it, that's how the person's faith build up on the spiritual life. The spiritual life is not about blind faith. The spirituality is not only about knowledge, the spirituality is also about practicing the culture. And so this is how science and spirituality have these fundamental commonalities. So first point is accepting scriptures and blind faith. No, we just saw science and spirituality and their commonalities. Let's come to the second point. Is accepting scriptures blind faith? Well, there had been undefeatable Vedic predictions. Just give me a quick second. So what are these undefeatable Vedic predictions which have been given in Vedic scriptures and which have proven correct? Like Vedas have precisely predicted the birth of great personalities. These are given in the scriptures. Buddha, there is a reference given, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 3rd chapter, 24. Similarly, Chanakya's birth, Ashoka's birth, and the birth and appearances of Prophet Muhammad and Christ, and also just very recent appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All this is precisely mentioned in Vedic scriptures. How Vedic scriptures, which were written 5,000 years ago, can precisely foretell the future event, and they all have come true. So it means Vedic scriptures are not a blind faith. So third point. So second point was undefeatable Vedic prophecies, or the things that are proven right. And the third is undefeatable Vedic truths. The science which is given in Vedic scriptures now even is recognized by the modern science. To give an example, there is a description of human embryology which is given in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in incredible details. Even science does not have that much information up to today, but whatever science have found out about the embryology matches exactly with the Vedic version. If any one of you is a doctor and interested to read, I can give you those texts. Similarly, modern man is turning to yoga, meditation, Vastu Shastra, astronomy, astrology, and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure all of you would have at least once in a while visited an astrologer, probably practicing yoga, doing some meditation. Where are these all knowledge given? This is given in Vedic scriptures. How Vedic scriptures could be mythology? How people could be practicing something on blind faith? No, it's not a blind faith. Similarly, the scripture says cow dung is pure. Not animal dung, not a human stool, only cow dung. And the scientists found out in 1940 there was an experiment where they found out, yes, actually cow dung is pure and it has antiseptic values. And now if you go out in the market, there are so many cow byproducts, in other words, products of cow dung, products based on cow urine. There are a lot of health medicines and so forth. You go out in the market, you'll find plenty of medicines. There are soaps, there are shampoo, everything is available based on cow dung and cow urine. Another interesting thing, the Vedas had stated from the beginning that plants have life. A lot of people laughed how plants could have life because they never thought. However, it was proven later on by scientist Jagdish Chandra Bose. Similarly, until the time of Columbus, it was considered the earth is flat, but the Vedic scriptures always called earth as Bhugol. You take a case of Varahadev killing Hiranyaksha, that time also it is mentioned Bhugol. Any time of any part of the history, Vedic history, if you see, since the beginning, it has been called Bhugol. And after Columbus' time, which is maybe a couple of centuries before, then the scientists got to know actually earth is not flat, earth is round. Like there's innumerable incidents of Vedic science, which now the scientists are recognizing because they're able to find out those things through their instruments and so forth. So like this, the Vedic science is not based on blind faith. Vedic science have different means to prove that it is factual. However, despite of all these evidences, despite of all this discussion, still because of lack of education, as I said yesterday, because Britishers, for political and religious reasons and purposes, they stopped Gurukul education. So all of us have lost touch with Vedic culture and scriptures. That's the reason I'm pretty sure all of you would have a lot of questions. For that reason, we have compiled a set of FAQs, frequently asked questions. There are around 7 to 8 FAQs. After this discussion of FAQs, if you have any further questions, then we'll take it if it is not addressed here. So let's begin with the first FAQ. What are the Vedas? I had shared this PPT with all of you before, just maybe an hour ago on the group, but we'll play it again. Give me a quick second. Let me open this PPT. Okay. And so we're talking about what are Vedas. So it's a very interesting PPT. Let's take a look at it. Vedic literatures, based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So please pay attention. Very interesting. It will answer many things here. Just give me a second. Let me arrange my screen here. Yeah. So we inhabit a huge universe. Not only planet Earth. If you look up in the sky, you'll find it out. Yes. So example is given of a Bangalore. A population over 6 million. One of the fastest growing cities. It's a little, excuse me, old presentation. So don't go with the statistics here. And we are here in this particular place. This huge complex, a temple complex, one second, I can't even read myself, is represented as a dot on Bangalore map. Fine. However, Bangalore itself is a dot in map of Karnataka. And if you look at Karnataka, Karnataka is one of the many states in India. And if you look at India, with whatever population is one of the many countries on the planet Earth. And if you look at planet Earth, is one of the many planets in our solar systems. And sun around which all the planets are orbiting is 1.4 lakh times bigger than Earth, approximately. And astrophysicists point out there are 2,000 billion stars like sun, each having its own family of planets. So what is the point raised here? According to science, all these billions of galaxies and trillions of stars comprises our universe. How do we understand God, who is creator and maintainer of such universes, not one, many such universes? Is it possible for us? And that person is beyond this gigantic manifestation. So all methods of acquiring knowledge can be broadly classified into 2 categories. We spoke about it already. Inductive, which means by research, we try to find out on our own. And deductive, which means descending. We go and inquire from authorities. Just like a child asking from his mother, who is my father, like that. To learn the truth by accepting an authority and inquiring from him. And a very interesting example. How can an ant living in one corner of this classroom know about what are the latest developments in Iraq? The wars in the other side of the globe, who is president of the United States of America, Arafat and ethnic conflicts in Palestine and Lebanon. In other words, the question is being raised, a tiny ant, let's say the tiny ant in your room, how can she find out about the world events which are happening across different parts of the globe? So logically speaking, ant can never know through its own effort. So the point is through inductive knowledge, if an ant makes an attempt to know about what is happening across the globe, it is not possible. Similarly, it's too small and has limited sense, sense perception. Similarly, if you think about we living entities in this massive creation are like an ant, even tinier than the ant. How can we find out about the existence of the God who exists not within the creation, who exists outside the creation? It is beyond any logic and any capacity for a person with the 4 defects, like tendency to commit mistakes, to be illusion, imperfect senses, and so forth. We have no choice but to accept the descending method of acquiring knowledge, which means by inquiring it from the appropriate authority who knows about the subject matter. Thus, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. ये fourth chapter का 34th verse है, where Krishna says how to approach Guru and how to inquire from Guru. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master and inquire submissively. Now, who is that authority? Who is that person from whom we should inquire? As we said in the previous session, authority refers to a bona fide person and the Vedic literatures. The Vedic literatures are compared to a mother. But aren't the Vedas written by men? This is what the Max Muller taught us. He said the Vedas are written by the cavemen, aborigines. We'll be talking about in a short while about that. No, the Vedas are not written by a man. The Vedas are Apurushaha. As I said in the beginning of the session, the Vedas are the words of the God. The Creator has given a manual for all of us to know and understand what is the purpose of this world and how to live our life. And this is the verse which comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna actually revealed this whole science of scriptures or the Vedas into the heart of Brahma. Tene Brahma Hridya Adikavya Muhanti Yat Surya. Tejavari Madam Yata Vinimaya Atrati Sargamashna. Like that, there's a beautiful verse that talks about it. So this whole knowledge was revealed in the heart of Brahma. The Vedic knowledge, like that, is mentioned. And then this is a parampara system. Lord Shri Krishna spoke to Brahma, Brahma spoke to Narad Muni, and Narad Muni spoke to Vyasadeva. And like that, in Guru Parampara system, this knowledge has been preserved and truthfully has been brought down the line or through the chain of disciplic succession to all of us today. And the process is through oral reception. Shabda Praman means to hear from the authority. The Vedas are also called Shrutis, a knowledge received through oral reception. Srimad Bhagavatam predicts about people in Kali Yuga. The question comes, why scriptures were written then if we have to hear about it? So Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the qualities of people in Kali Yuga. After when I tell you the qualities, you can type in if you agree with it or not. There are 4 features of a person in Kali Yuga. The first feature, the people in Kali Yuga are lazy. How many of you think is correct actually? Second, they're misguided. They really don't know what is the purpose of life. Third, they're unfortunate. How much ever try, they try to do their hard work. Still, everyone claims that, everyone has the same issue. Why do bad things happen to good people? And fourth, they are all disturbed. How many of you agree all the 4 things are correct about the people in Kali Yuga? So long ago, scriptures foretold about what are the people, what people would be like in Kali Yuga. So for these category of people who are disturbed, who are lazy, who are unlucky and misguided, our Vyasadeva decided to write down all the scriptures. So around 5,000 years ago, Srila Vyasadeva, for the benefit of people in Kali Yuga, he compiled all the scriptures. Until 5,000 years ago, the scriptures, everyone would memorize all the scriptures. That was a capacity. But for the Kali Yuga people, we can't even remember the numbers. I mean to say the 4 numbers. We have to have a mobile phone to save it, then a Google account to sync it and whatnot. So that's the whole idea. So Vyasadeva, knowing that will be of very weak intelligence, he wrote down everything. And that's how the Vedic scripture came into the form that we have today. What the world-renowned personalities say about the Vedic literatures? Albert Einstein. When I read the Bhagavad Gita, the only question left is how God created the universe. Everything else seems to be superfluous. This is T.S. Eliot. The balance of mind which few highly civilized individuals, such as Arjuna, the hero of Bhagavad Gita, can maintain in action is difficult for most of us even as observers. The deeper you dive into it, richer the meaning you get. With every age, the important words will carry new and expanding meanings, but its central teachings will not vary. And what is the central teaching? So the central teaching is Man mana bhava madbhakto madayachi mam namaskaru, is to always remember the Lord, is to always serve the Lord, is to always love the Lord. That's the central teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Like that, there are other references given. This is spoken by Henry David Thoreau, the famous philosopher and writer. In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. So that's a background about what Vedic scriptures are. And Vedic scriptures offers us insights into who am I, where have I come from, where do I go after that. As I said, all the fundamental questions and all the problems for which we don't have an answer, everything is mentioned in Vedas. What does Vedas stand for? These are the fundamental questions that what Vedas answer. So let's return back to our original presentation. What does Vedas stands for? Vedas means knowledge. The word Veda comes from with is to means to know. Let me just share it quickly. The word Veda itself means knowledge. Oops, where it is. Yeah, the meaning of the word means knowledge. In other words, Vedic scriptures is nothing but is a source of knowledge. Anything that we need to know about how to live and what to do in this world, it is mentioned in Vedic scriptures. Vedic scriptures are extremely vast. Unfortunately, because of what had happened in the history of last 1,000 years with this particular land of Bharat, we have lost almost up to 93% of scriptures. Only 5 to 7% of Vedic literature is remaining. But fortunate to us, the most important Vedic scriptures, which is Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they're still protected and preserved by the grace of the disciplic succession. So that's about Vedas. One second, let me just arrange my screen here. Origin of Vedas, we already spoke about. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavya. How did Vedas came into existence? They are not man-made. It is given by the Supreme Lord to Brahma, the secondary creator, and from Brahma to Narad Muni, and like that in disciplic succession. How are we preserving and how are we receiving them? We already discussed this question also. It's through the disciplic chain that this knowledge is preserved and is shared ahead. Who wrote Vedas and when? And what was the situation around that time? We spoke about Vyasadeva wrote for the people of Kali Yuga because they will have a short memory. So prior to that, the Vedas were all memorized. The memory was so sharp and so brilliant, they didn't have to write down anything. So there were no written scriptures until then. It is in Kali Yuga in less than 5,000 years when we got all these written scriptures. So that's the basic about Vedic scriptures. The next question that arises is, divisions of Vedas. Are Vedas divided into something? Yes. There are 4 primary Vedas, which is known by the name of Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Veda. So Vyasadeva, first of all, does anyone know actually who wrote the Vedas? Vyasadeva was speaking. And who was the person who was writing the Vedas? Let's see the chat box. Yes, that's Ganeshji. Vyasadeva was speaking, and it is Ganeshji who was writing it. So, nonetheless, coming to the point, after compiling the 4 literatures or 4 Vedic scriptures, then Srila Vyasadeva, I guess in the next slide we have this description. After dividing the Vedas into 4 Vedas, next Srila Vyasadeva wrote or compiled his 5th Veda, which is known as Puranas and Ityas. This is nothing but the history of world, history of living entities or humans and devatas of this world and of rest of the universe. So according to time, place, circumstances, those stories have been shared in different Puranas and Ityas. Puranas like Padma Purana, Skanda Puran, Garud Puran, like that. There are many Puranas like that. Matsya Puran, so forth. Devi Puran, Shiv Puran, there are many Puranas like this. After that, after writing the 5th Veda, then Vyasadeva compiled Mahabharata, which is said to be the history of Greater India. It's a Mahabharata just prior to the beginning of Kali Yuga, when the great battlefield of great battle at Kurukshetra took place, where 60 crore people died on the battlefield. Such, and that too in 18 days. Such was the what should I say? A severe battle that was fought at that point of time. And it is Bhagavad, it is Mahabharata that actually contains the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, which we call as Bhagavad Gita. The word Bhagavad Gita means Song of God. And that's why we have Bhagavad Gita with us, which is found in Mahabharata. After this, Srila Vyasa wrote what is called as Vedanta Sutras. Vedanta Sutras are short statements. This is primarily meant for intellectuals. They're called sutras, a concise, you can say, very concisely put information. And I believe there are 555 sutras. It is not easy to understand. They are very complicated, in other words. It needs a great depth of understanding of the previous things before we can decode Vedanta Sutras. So when Vyasa wrote Vedanta Sutras, he was wondering, I've written the most advanced text, the Vedanta Sutra, where all the knowledge of Vedas have been compiled and put into the sutras. But if I don't explain about it, nobody can understand. So Srila Vyasa then wrote the very last thing, which was a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is said to be the knowledge of all scriptures, the conclusion of scriptures. And then Srila Vyasa gave a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which is known by the name of Srimad Bhagavatam, which he elaborated in 18,000 shlokas or the verses. So this is how the Vedas are divided. Of course, Vedas have two parts, Shruti and Smriti. I'm not going to go into all those details right now. So this is briefly about what are Vedas. Now, the main subject matter. We have been beating around the bush apparently. We start, that was the fundamental topic. Are the Vedas mythology? So we're going to look into it now. Focus on this topic. Are Vedas really mythology? So first of all, let's take a look into it. When did this word mythology got tagged to Vedas? When did we started calling Vedas mythology? When was it? Let's take a look at this small video.
Indologists wish to control and convert the followers of Vedic culture.
All of you able to hear the
Therefore,
sound?
they widely propagated that the Vedas were simply mythology. Max Mueller, perhaps the most well-known early Sanskritist and Indologist, although
Go ahead.
later in life he glorified the Vedas, initially wrote that the Vedas were worse
Just give me a second. Yeah, please continue.
than savage, and India must be conquered again by education. Its religion is doomed. Thomas Macaulay, who introduced English education into India, wanted to make the residents into a race that was Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinion, in morals, and in intellect. However, the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated that the Sanskrit understanding of these Indologists was like that of young schoolboys. These early Indologists devised the Aryan invasion theory, denying India's Vedic past. They taught that the English educational system is superior. They intentionally misinterpreted Sanskrit texts to make the Vedas look primitive, and they systematically tried to make Indians ashamed of their own culture. Thus, the actions of these Indologists seems to indicate that they were motivated by a racial bias.
I hope all of you could hear the sound. If not, I will share this video with all of you on the group again, so you can watch it. But the key message, or the gist of this video was, it was for political and religious reasons why the Indologists, which means the Westerners who were studying scriptures, they actually derided. In other words, they said these Vedas are of no value, they are fictional stories, this is not fact, just because they wanted to rule over the country, break the backbone of this country, which was the foundation of it was Vedic knowledge, and the people of this country were very, very advanced in knowledge. So just to make them lose faith in themselves, in their culture, and their education, and to become subservient to them, that's the reason they introduced an English education model. And I gave you a little history yesterday, how when English education started, in India and also in Europe, first of all. So our Vedas mythology. Can I request? I believe there are some kids, so please keep your video on pause. Don't stream your video because the bandwidth may become a little less. So let the presentation go. At the end of the session, you can switch on your video if you have something to say. So the first reason, as I said, it is Max Muller who began this discussion, was to dishonor Vedas for political purpose. Why? Because they wanted to rule the country and they wanted to introduce their own education system. See, education is something very interesting. If you control the education, then you actually control the minds of people. I'll say again, if you control the education, then you control the minds of people. Why? Because whatever way and however you want to educate, that's what people will become. And that's what they will believe in. And that's what the Britishers did with the people of this country. So and what Max Muller and people like this, Max Muller Indology said, oh, these scriptures, they were written by some caveman. Who was a caveman they were indicating? Vyasadeva. Because he was an ascetic, he would live on the Himalayas. So they called the great personality Vyasadeva, who wrote lakhs and crores of verses in profound Sanskrit language, to be an illiterate and a caveman. If that's the case, let's talk about this cavemen or the aborigines to whom they criticized and told people that they were illiterate and they were speculators. So let's take a look at what this aborigines, in other words, what did Vyasadeva actually gave us. The very first thing, these are very important points. If you want, you can pay attention to it or write it down for your reference. The very first thing, Vyasadeva wrote every single thing in Sanskrit. Now, Sanskrit is such an advanced language. Just to learn the language of Sanskrit and to master its grammar, it takes 12 years of education just to grasp Sanskrit language. Now, how much time does it take for learn English and Hindi? Maybe you can go and do a 6 months or 3 months course outside and you will learn English and Hindi and any other language. And Sanskrit is said to be the mother of all languages. From matra, like the word mother came like that. All the words have actually come from Sanskrit. All the languages have come from Sanskrit. That's the root. Second, excuse me, divisions of time. What kind of aborigines were they who formulated divisions of time? Talking about from Anu to the time of the destruction of creation or destruction of the universe to the time of the, there is a complete to a minute details, the time, duration of a life on this world, the duration of life on the planets higher to us, to the Brahma Loka, the lifespan of this universe, everything is mentioned. I had shared a chart about the time model of, according to Vedic time, the Vedic time model, and I know some of you could not really get it because it takes time to explain, but I just shared it for a reference just to understand how great, advanced the Vedic science and the Vedic science were advanced, so you can imagine the people who understood it, how intelligent they must be. So that's what Vedic time model is all about. Just to give you an answer, what is the life duration of this creation? It is 311 trillion and 40 billion years. And that is the lifespan of Brahma. As long as the Brahma is alive, till the time the creation is going to be there, nothing is going to happen to creation, despite of whatever they have to claim and so forth. Next, we were talking about the embryology. So incredible details are mentioned about it. There is a text within the Ayurveda text. If somebody is a doctor, if somebody is keen to read, I can share with them. Those Sanskrit have been translated into English. You can read about all the details of how the child, how the child feels in the womb of the mother from the time the body begins to form, or from the time the soul enters the womb of a mother, how the child feels. To that details, not the physiology, even the psychology of the child is being described in Vedic scriptures. How some illiterate caveman could know so much in depth? Next point, what kind of aborigines were they that they could precisely predict and tell the number of species in this universe? And today, if you go and look on internet or in the scientific website, that today the science believe that there are 7 million species. And year by year, they're getting closer to the number. They believe, they have not found, but they're speculating about it. Scripture says there are 8.4 million species. And what are these 8.4 million species? I'll be talking to you about it in one of the sessions ahead. Next, and think about the diverse knowledge which is given in our scriptures. How is it that the Vedas, which are supposed to be dubious writings of uncivilized aborigines, may contain, or not may contain systematic information on subjects as music? Our classical music is the most favorite, most profound, and most soothing. What about the science of medicine, which is Ayurveda? You know, the Ayurveda, I don't know if you all have had an experience with Ayurvedic treatment. It's an incredible, there is no side effects, unlike allopathy. And Ayurveda, when you take a treatment, it actually cures you, not allopathy, which just pauses the problem. Similarly, about arts, politics, architecture, beautiful architectures. You might have seen Vedic architectures and temples, warfare and psychology and so forth. So many things are mentioned in detail in Vedic scriptures. Here, atomic science, the books or the texts that were written by Vyasadeva, who Max Muller called as a caveman, illiterate, a forest dweller. How could such an uncivilized aborigine may know the art of reading and writing? Forget about those reading and writing, much less describe the atom and atomic energy. The third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam talks about and details about atoms. And now the scientists recognize the atom is the building block of this whole creation. Similarly, about the universe, how could they give descriptions of orbits of the planets, their size, their eclipses, size of the universe? All of you know about, for example, if you follow Vedic calendar or Tithi, we know on what particular day Lord Shri Krishna, Lord Ram, all the great personalities of the past appeared. Even today, after so many, 5,000 years later, 5,000 years ago, Krishna appeared, but millions of years ago, Lord Ram appeared. Even today, we know when Lord Ram and Krishna and all the great personalities appeared. The astronomy, the Vedic astronomy already had an understanding of the planets, about the constellation, about the sun god or the Surya. Everything was there. And this is how the astrology functions. Astrology functions on the basis of the movements of the stars. Now, all this thing, what the science recognizes today, is not older than 40 or 50 years ago, when they found telescope, and through that they began the observation and so forth. Vedic scriptures from the beginning of the time have been talking about all these things. Eighth, okay, not only the Vedic scriptures of Vyasadeva described about the things which are far out and incredible, but they also spoke about, or Vyasadeva also spoke about things which is beyond our sense perception, which we cannot perceive from our senses, and that is soul and super soul. Atma. Now, who am I? The body and soul is a subject matter of next week discussion, and there will give you evidences from science, how science have actually proven that soul exists. Now, the science today is able to prove soul exists, and our scriptures have already been talking about it since the beginning, that we are not the body, but a spirit. And not only this, all this Vedic scriptures are acknowledged by best of the scientists. Albert Einstein, Robert Oppenheimer, and so forth. So question arises, all these great personalities, are these learned men, excuse me, are they fools reading the books written by uncivilized aborigines, the cavemen and so forth? Or Vedas are the books of knowledge given by Lord and preserved by being handed down in Vedic tradition of disciplic succession. With this, all this discussion, I believe the answer is very clear. The Vedic scripture, the amount of wisdom and the knowledge which is given, even not all is understandable by the modern science of today, must have been given by the Lord. It cannot be a work of a man, because a man cannot speak our subjects beyond sense perception. What is beyond our sense perception, we can only understand from people or from personalities who have access to those realms. So that's the first thing to counter-argue about Max Muller's statement that these were the works of aborigines. So our Vedas mythology, that's what our discussion. So that was the first point to discuss about. And second, why people consider Vedas to be mythology. And the second reason is there are certain sections of Vedic scriptures which are beyond human experience. In other words, which is difficult to understand. Just give me a quick second. Just like we were recently discussing Ramayana. And in Ramayana, you find many characters which are beyond our human experience, just like the talking monkey. The Vanaras, they could speak like humans. There was a Rakshasa with 10 heads that is called as Ravana. And you have then Narad Muni, the spaceman that who could fly anywhere in the creation. Then Ravana's Pushpak Viman, which will fly without any petrol, without any controlling gears, but with the thoughts of Ravana's, with the strength of Ravana's mind. So when you read about this kind of advanced technology, incredible living entities and humans, and the gods existing in the past, which is beyond our human perception, so immediately an immature, inexperienced, and a narrow-minded person would say, "Oh, Vedas have to be mythology because it doesn't exist. We have not seen anything like this." So ultimately, as long as a person keeps on saying, seeing is believing, till that point of time, the person can really never gain any knowledge of wisdom and he can never grow. To give you one last example before we conclude this discussion, now all of you might have heard about Shivaji Maharaj and other great personalities. Now, these are just 300, 400, 500 years ago. If you read about their physical strength, read about the size of their armor or the weapons, then you'll understand that just 400, 500 years ago, the people were extremely powerful and they could lift a sword which would be 70 kilometers in weight. Now, we can't lift a 20 kgs weight. What does people lifting a 70 kgs or 50 kg sword and fighting within a war where you have to really use it very fast? So, as Kali Yuga, the Vyasa gives a description. In Kali Yuga, not only these are the four descriptions, Manda, Sumanda, Matabhagyo, Updritaha, but also as the age is increasing, in other words, as the time is going on, the people are becoming more weaker. Not, you may think, oh, we are making more advancement. Weaker in their ability to understand spiritual subject matter, but they will become more stronger in facilitating the animalistic traits and enjoying life like animals. People will become more smarter in it. However, to understand spiritual subject matters, which require some intelligence, people will become more and more weak and will lose the ability to understand that. And that is what is happening as with the passing of time. Finally, what is the purpose of Vedas? What are we supposed to learn out of the Vedas? Veda means knowledge. Any knowledge, everything that you need to know is given in the Vedas. And that's what Vedas is all about. But what is a purpose? Because everything has a purpose. Just like this laptop that I'm using has a purpose to fulfill. Similarly, the human life has a purpose. And what is the purpose of Vedas? You have a homework verse. Please go to 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita and verse number 15. I can't write it here, and anyways, I have not quoted here. The verse number 15th of 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita will give you the purpose of Vedas. And what is the purpose of Vedas? Krishna says, the purpose of Vedas is to know me. I am the original compiler of Vedas, and the Vedas teach about how to love God. And that is the purpose of Vedas. So with this as a background and understanding about scriptures, today we'll conclude our session now. In today's session, our Vedas mythology, we spoke at length about the first three initial things that we discussed about. Let's talk about yesterday's session. When we yesterday began our discussion, we were talking about the basic need of every human being, and that is to search for happiness, which is same with animals. So what is unique to humans? Unique to humans is A, B, C, D. Ability to inquire, B is to seek bliss, C for choice, and D for determination. So this ability to inquire is unique to humans. And what humans can do, what animals can't do, they can inquire about the purpose of life, why do they suffer, and so forth. And these all answers are given in the scriptures. Our science and technology cannot resolve all this complex. So scriptures mention, let's say Bhagavad Gita talks about 7 real-life problems. They don't, the Bhagavad Gita not only talk about it, but also gives us a solution about it. So like that, we had concluded yesterday's session, and today we begin with, is putting faith in Vedas is a blind faith? So we gave you three reasons. No, we don't put a blind faith in Vedas. Does anyone know what is blind faith means? Blind faith means, let's say you see a person wearing a white coat and you immediately infer he's a doctor. That's a blind faith. No, Vedas are not about blind faith. Vedas, to put faith in Vedas is reasonable because whatever Veda says, it can be proven. It could be realized with time. So the first argument we made was science versus spirituality. There are two commonalities in science and spirituality. Both have faith, axiomatic truth, and second, both have pattern, theory, experiment, and conclusion. Then we talked about the evidences, the foretold events which were given in Vedic scriptures, like the appearance of great personalities. And then we also spoke about the third point was undefeatable Vedic truths. Now the cow dung is considered pure, the plants have life, and so many things like that. After this, we took FAQs. And there were varied degrees of FAQs. What are Vedas? When was Vedas compiled? Who was the original speaker of Vedas? And why and how Vedas were tagged as mythology. So we showed you a small video about how Max Muller actually plans to destroy our Vedic culture so that the British can continue and rule this, rule the people of this country by making them feel inferior about their culture and tradition and education, so that they lose all the faith in what they believe and they become servants of Britishers. That's the whole idea, and we gave you almost 10 points that what Max Muller said, that these Vedas are written by a caveman living in a forest, illiterate person. In fact, that person was the most intelligent, advanced person, and we offered you 10 points to counter-argue that. And finally, Vedas mythology. The second reason why people consider it to be because there are certain sections of Vedas which are difficult. Yes, we acknowledge there are certain sections of Vedas that are difficult, but because something is difficult, something which we cannot comprehend, does not mean that we negate the rest of the Vedic scriptures that bring out such a valuable lessons and teachings to all of us. It is maybe that at this point of time, I'm not qualified to understand, but people would not agree that they're not qualified. Everyone thinks they're qualified to comment and speak about anything. However, unless a person graduates from 12th standard, unless he goes through a bachelor degree, unless he finishes after degree, how is he expected to graduate from PhD? It is not possible. And that's the whole idea. So accept what, according to your capacity and qualification, and take the spiritual culture. Sooner and gradually, you'll be able to understand the higher truths which are mentioned in these scriptures. And finally, we discussed what is the purpose of Vedas, and the purpose of Veda is one and all. And that is to know God, to know Krishna, and to love Him by one's all heart, and to re-establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So with that, we thank you all for all of your kind attention. If you have any questions, we can take your questions now. And next weekend, when we meet, we'll be talking about reincarnation. Is it a fact or is it fiction? What happens after death? Does ghost really exist? Where were we before this birth? And so forth. I won't be talking this from Bhagavad Gita. I'll be again speaking about this discussion on the basis of what science have said, the science have described, and then I will quote Bhagavad Gita just to give you as an evidence. This is what scriptures talk about. So thank you all of you for coming today evening and spending your time with us. If you have any questions, I'll pause here and you can now share your questions. So